And obviously one of the biggest hurdles is making sure that my executive leadership team is bought in.
Yes.
Right. Now I'm always going to put my employees, because that's my team one, and my customers, they're going to come first. But obviously I got to get everybody else on board, right? Our CEO, our head of sales, head of product, everybody has to, marketing, everyone has to be bought in, because this change impacts everybody, right? So how our sales team sells and talks about what that post initial sales experience looks like, what this might do to retention and growth opportunities. And so we all just need to be prepared for what this will look like, but getting them bought in and also excited about the direction that we're headed, and really, again, articulating the why.
From my perspective, you have to talk to them in their own language. And what I mean by that, so when I started Officium, I created something called the service stack maturity model. And the essence of the model was, I was like, hey, I've been building CX teams my whole life, but I've never built the framework on what makes my thing successful, right? So I built the framework, and the framework is great for the CX team, because they're like, yeah, we got to do this, and this is the next feature in the framework, and this is, this all makes sense, let's go do. And then you have the executives being like, why do I want to spend money to do that?
Yeah.
So what I was like, okay, so what I have to do is I have to take this framework that's going to work really well with the CX workers and the leaders, and say, okay, how do we translate that to a value statement or a value metric for the executives? And that's where the LTV thing comes into play. So it's usually lifetime value, optimization. Those are the two key things, or some type of satisfaction metric of some C-suites like satisfaction. Not all of us, some do. So you're basically looking at revenue and finance, right? Those are the two. Those are usually the power cores. Yep. Sometimes you have a power core that's IT or tech, but usually it's revenue, finance, in some cases product. And so if revenue, great, then LTV works well. If it's finance, great, LTV plus optimization, savings that's going to happen by implementing these things. If it happens to be product, great, let me show you how to get more sticky customers, how to decrease the amount of barriers that you're putting in front of them that you're not even paying attention that you're putting in front of them, because you're not looking at the customer journey to understand it completely. But with my service tech, I can help you do that. So invest some money to do that. So it's really just talking about, like, what are the things that are going to resonate with them, and talk to them about that, and then talk to the rest of your team about all the stuff and that's going to resonate with them, and just say, hey, as a leader, I got to talk to the folks about this. So just know I'm going to be talking to them about this, but this is the stuff, right? And I think if you're honest and transparent, it works. You just got to make sure you're honest and transparent.
Yeah. I love how you're
so two parts to that. When we started, and we were sort of an immature function within Cisco a dozen years ago, to be fair, the discipline of CX was relatively new too. We spent a lot of time simply evangelizing about what is experience and the discipline of experience, and why it's important, for a recurring revenue type of business. Now, the industry is more mature, the discipline is more mature, we're more mature within Cisco. So now we spend a lot of time using the data that we have, helping sure, and similar to what we do with customers, where we're taking the customer feedback all along the way of our development process, our journey development. We also work closely with the different stakeholders that we have within Cisco, and we co-develop with them, because they've got a lot of knowledge that we don't, whether that be about their product, if they're in a BU, or the process, if they're in engineering, whatever it might be. So we want to make sure that we are bringing that knowledge into the process. We want to make sure that we're bringing those stakeholders into the process so that they have more buy-in themselves, and will help evangelize the process. So it's a combination of getting their knowledge and their buy-in, and starting off with jointly identifying what's the problem. Either what's the problem that we know customers are complaining about, or if their metrics, if their own business metrics that they care about within their own business unit aren't where they should be, or aren't where they might be relative to other BUs. That's how we can identify a problem that we both care about and start working on it together.
That's awesome.
Some other things that I've seen just throughout my career is some challenges with kind of the interpretation of what the executive team thinks customer success should be, and how it should be measured, and what the interpretation of those metrics should be. So there are good metrics and there are bad metrics, and there are metrics that are more appropriate for measuring the entirety of your company, not just isolating an individual department and kind of judging that. So those are some of the kind of pain points that I've experienced that I've had to correct and educate executives and kind of bring to light that there are larger scale problems in a company, not just hey, if churn goes up, CS is failing. If expansion goes up, CS is killing it, right? There's a lot of other inputs to that. There's market positioning and the competitive landscape, and there's your overall customer experience and support and service, and there's so many other factors that go into whether your company is going to be successfully driving revenue growth, or is going to be hurting in that factor. Economic, like, I mean, just the economy at large, right? So yeah, everything, right? So and I feel like when I've encountered executives who are very binary in their understanding of metrics, it creates a lot of misreads on internal performance.
Well, obviously numbers matter. Yeah. So anytime that you can pull together some ROI, right, that's usually important. And a lot of times that's a data exercise. It's not as simple as it was just saying, hey, we've reduced churn by X, right? That's one aspect of it. And you can't always attribute an improved customer experience, or maybe an improved process, or some new thing that we've given the customers. You can't always say that that's how we reduce that churn. So you have to find other ways. You know, while with Univar, we had done some remarkable work with our data scientists, with our analytics team, where we're able to actually identify the ROI of moving your detractors to promoters, or the inverse, promoters going to detractors. You actually had customers who were participating in that NPS survey process consistently. And so you could track their movement from, you know, promoter to detractor, or vice versa. And we could actually then assign or attach to that the value in which they were bringing to the business. That was huge. We were able to articulate to our stakeholders, to our senior leadership team, that there was significant more value in those detractors moved to promoters as compared to the rest of the growth in the business. That matters, right? Then suddenly you see your CFO light up. You see the CEO say, okay, or maybe other business leaders who weren't totally bought in. So data matters, ROI matters. It's difficult at times, but it can't ever be one thing. It can't just be we reduce churn, you know, NPS has gone up. There's a few things you have to do around it. The other piece I think that's really important is interviewing the customers, bringing their perspective, and do it in a video, by the way, kind of like we're doing today. See which customers, the ones that love you and the ones that hate you. Have the conversation, share those personal experiences with stakeholders and with the C-suite, so that they can see firsthand. So it's not just your version of the truth, it's direct from them. So those customer interviews, I think, are really powerful for the business to see how what we're doing or not doing is effective or affecting them day in, day out.
Yeah, and it's hearing it straight from the horse's mouth. You know, nothing can be better than that. I love that. So now that
well, it's maybe an overused cliche, but, you know, rising tide lifts all ships. People buy into you because they like you. People buy into you because they see a vision. People also need to feel valued. And I've heard this saying before, and it's very true. There's never been somebody that's ever quit a job in their life. They quit a boss. And why they quit a boss? Well, you know, people say, well, you know, it's because they didn't quit the boss. They went because somebody offered them more money. And my response is because the boss didn't value them enough to go fight for them to get more money. That's why they left. And the whole thing with Amplify Labs, I hope with a lot of other places, and this is not just lip service, this is God's honest truth, where we do have a flat structure where we encourage people to speak their minds. We encourage people to contribute because people want to be heard, people need to be heard, and people deserve to be heard. And if there's not that feeling of being wanted or being appreciated, people will leave in a heartbeat when something better comes along. So again, competing on and retaining on service, on the way we treat people and our clients, that's what we compete on. Because we've had people in the organization that have turned down slightly more money because they know of the environment we provide. the atmosphere of the work. And that's what we compete on, is providing that where people are collaborative and they learn a lot more than they would elsewhere. So just like people want to make themselves indispensable, we want to make our culture and our organization indispensable to them so they don't want to leave.
Yeah, I think a lot of it really comes into, you know, if you're driving a car, you need to have your dashboards, right? You need to know your speedometer tells you how fast you're going, your temperature gauge tells you, you know, what your oil pressure looks like. So really building those dashboards that everybody agrees on and looks at, and really kind of, I think, you know, it's customer experience. Not everybody gets excited about it, but when you put the right dashboards into place, it really can have people get excited. I get emails in the morning from CEOs every day that see that a dashboard came in, you know, that service level was, you know, better than goal, and budget was better than, you know, allocated, and quality was above, and truly people get excited about it. So putting those things out there that are easy to read, easy to digest. My least favorite thing is when reporting needs to be, you need to click on 3 different things to find it. You need to scroll down. And so we really try to put in a lot of reporting that looks like a speedometer. You know, you can see, are you red, yellow, green? Where are you at? People for some reason just respond to that, you know, whether you're on a road trip and you're used to staring at a speedometer, but really understanding and putting together the reporting that makes sense. And then that also is monthly business reviews, and then quarterly and annual reviews. But most senior leaders I've seen want things to be simple. They want it to be in words that they can understand. They want it to be a one-stop shop. They don't want to have to go to one place for a report. So really working with them to put it together. And I generally I'm amazed that how busy people are, all the things they have going on. When you give them that information in a very digestible one-stop shop, how responsive they are to it.
Well, as a consultant, it may not be me who speaks with the C-suite. It may be the person who I'm engaged with, but nonetheless, we stop and we listen to what the C-suite wants. We understand their goals and we work out how customer experience can help them achieve that. I believe we have to manage customer experience as a business discipline. And once we know what those goals are, we can start talking to people about how customer experience can achieve those goals, agree some targets, some KPIs, and then put in place some activities to directly improve customer experience. That might be a project that resolves a specific issue, but also projects to put in place customer experience management capabilities so that they don't need me going forward.
Exactly.
See, I don't have that problem. It's very hard for me to kind of say, what am I doing to get their attention? I think one of the advantages we have, it's actually we have a small leadership team, and everybody was hired kind of following the same principles. You have to stay true to your customers. You have to be customer centric. So from the chief financial officer to the chief revenue officer, you know, again, we have different priorities. We're growing a business, but the customer is the number one priority. Making the right thing is the right priority. So honestly, that has been a very easy part of my journey with Cority, because I had all of the support just as I walked in the door of the organization to do the right thing for our customers. Probably other people will have different challenges. This is just not one of the ones I have.
Well, that's
Yes, been there, done that.
yeah.
My answer is pilot programs, because you really have to prove the value of what you're speaking about. Now, if you've never done it before, it's a chicken and an egg. So you start small and then you scale, but you've got to show versus just saying, this is Stacy's opinion of doing something. No, set up a small pilot test, I call it TAR, test, analyze, adjust, repeat. And so through that, that's where the C-suite will then say, okay, I see the value. It's not just you talking, but by doing it on a small scale, then they can understand and see the value.
Another one of my passion topics, because the few times that I've been in the chief experience role, it's been a new position in an organization. And as I mentioned in the beginning, it's providing clarity for what that role is and how that role and how that team is going to work across the organization. But huge believer in having a seat at the C-suite table. If you're so fortunate, and I always recommend that if you're new to role, or you're defining that, yes, we need a chief experience officer, that person should be part of that C-suite team. It doesn't always happen that way, but if you don't have the direct seat, it's really important to have direct connection to that team to be able to provide updates and share successes with that group. One of the ways, though, that I think is really important is making it real for your C-suite folks. Making it real for everybody in the organization is critical, but oftentimes those executive leaders are not exactly sure, well, what does that really mean around we need to change this from X to Y? So one of the things that I always do is I use my C-suite team to each have a responsibility for a moment of the experience that they are an executive sponsor of. So when I was in an insurance organization, we had our chief product officer who was responsible for being the sponsor of the renewal experience that we were building from, current state to future state. It's not that they need to do all the work, but they're overseeing and they're understanding and seeing kind of firsthand how their employees are having trouble delivering on that experience, but actually what it means to bring them into a place where you want to improve that experience. So they become part of the process. And I've found that very, very, very impactful.
I'm a numbers person.
Yep.
Give me a number, I'm happy to play around with it. So I think numbers are always critical for providing the backup for any kind of request you have. So if you need more headcount because your team is overwhelmed, you need to be able to show, what's your team handling, what they're managing, what they're bringing in, what would happen if you didn't get more headcount. All these things are going to go into churn and whatever numbers you want to manage. So without question, you need to have some backup, and numbers always work well with executives. The other thing is you have to make sure that you deliver on what you're promising. You need to give reason or examples of trust, right? Or give the reasons to have the executives trust you. So there are times that you need to loop the execs in. Like there's a big problem with the customer, you need to loop the execs in. Maybe not such a big problem with the customer, but you really want to make sure the exec team is aware of what's going on. So you need to know when you bring the execs in, and when you kind of just give them an FYI and keep track of what's going on. The other thing is make promises, deliver on them, deliver on success. Nobody is going to get buy-in from an executive team if you can't deliver on the success.
Having good GRR numbers is, usually a very good thing. Like, oh, we've had 90% renewal retention quarter over quarter in the downturn in the economy. That's a lovely thing for a C-suite team to hear. I would say health scores, being able to articulate, look at the health of our customers and how they align with our retention rate, our renewal rates. Look at the upsell opportunities that we've been able to flag. So being able to look at the number of upsell signals that we've been able to capture and how many of them have actually turned into true new business for us. I think those usually are the driving factors for any C-suite when it comes to the customer success team.
Yeah, the proof is in the pudding, right? You're doing it right if you're making more money.
Sorry, and one last thing is customer stories. Being able to get customers to agree to evangelize and showcase our solution on our behalf. So, they always say one negative, comment spreads, but a positive comment, everyone always thinks of the negative. So it's one, keeping all our customers happy. but also then having all of them evangelize our product and selling it for itself, like it sells itself, is ultimately what we all want.
Yeah, I think it's not too different from, again, how you work with any of your peers. It's understanding what are their goals and motivations and the initiatives that they are running, and how does the work that customer success or client success is doing either help to further those initiatives, or conversely, like where could it conflict and create some challenges that might actually hinder the progress of those initiatives. So really being able to do that, and I think most critically is being able to tell that story with numbers, with data. That's where I've found it has the biggest impact. And so being able to tell that in a compelling way with the data that you have available.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think one of the things too is because I'm coming with 25 years experience, we're always, banging my head against the CX or waving, standing on the soapbox and waving the flag for the importance of understanding the customer and the needs. My mindset is already there. And so I do tend to look at the organization about, what are we doing for our team experience, our customer experience, our brand and product experience? Like, how does that work? Because I'm a passionate believer that if we can, you make your customer happy, the revenue, the reoccurring, the referrals, like all that stuff just kind of, it happens. So, I've day one really focused on everyone thinking about how do we improve the team, the customer, product, and brand. I'm a big fan of the Qualtrics XM kind of mindset. And so, I'm trying to kind of look at organizing the company that way. But then as I'm, talking to my teams and they're coming to me with the changes they want, I'm kind of trying to get them back to a standard process of way that they're thinking. Like, okay, well, is it going to impact our ability to, message or, drive profit or, acquire new customers or retain customers or grow customers? Like, thinking about it in that framework for me is how I'm having at least my team come to me. I think they're going to, as customer-led CEO, really thinking about those initiatives. I'm already in the place of how does it benefit our customers? Like, if we're writing code, is first off, have we validated it with feedback? Have we gone out and asked the team and the customer, do they want it? Because the last thing we can afford to do is build something nobody wants, or it's not solving a problem, or they're willing to pay for it. So just again, stepping back and thinking about the customer is really how I kind of try to get everyone to think about their projects and their requests for money, which is now being on the other side of it going, I kind of have to work with the CFO and we have to say no a lot, but I have to be able to tell people why, or can we do it in a different way? So.